This is the Build a Vibrant Culture podcast, your source for the strategies, systems, and insights you need to turn your dreams into your destiny. Every week, we dive into dynamic conversations as our host, Nicole Greer, interviews leadership and business experts. They're here to shed light on practical solutions to the challenges of personal and professional development. Now, here's your host, a professional speaker, coach, and consultant, Nicole Greer.
Welcome, everybody, to the Build a Vibrant Culture podcast. My name is Nicole Greer, and they call me the Vibrant Coach, and I am here with Karl Sakas. He is an agency advisor, and his company is Sakas and Company. Karl helps independent agency owners work less and earn more. Let me repeat that. Work less and earn more. I know you all want to sign up for that program. While rewarding their best team members. Drawing on his background in agency operations, Karl has personally advised hundreds of agencies on every inhabited continent. He is the author of 4 books, including Work Less, Earn More, and his new book, oh my gosh, Calm the Chaos, and hundreds of articles on agency management. When he's not helping clients, Karl volunteers as a bartender on an antique train. Okay, so let's figure out what his favorite cocktail is. And you can get a free copy of his 50 scripts for handling difficult client conversations when you sign up for his agency growth newsletter. Now, here's the thing, y'all. He works with agencies, but what we're going to talk about today, Calm the Chaos. I bet if you have an agency, you have a retail store, you work in a hospital, there's probably chaos. So welcome to the show, Karl. I'm so glad you're here.
Nicole, great to be here. Great to be back and looking forward to helping people.
Yeah. We are so excited to have you here. So let's get this bartending thing out of the way right up
Sure.
front. Tell us about
Yeah.
the antique train and all the things.
Yeah. Well, it's an antique train car called the Dover Harbor. It's owned by a railroad preservation history nonprofit based in DC. So
Wow.
everyone who's working on it is a volunteer. They've been around for many, many years. And so we do trips. You can charter the whole car and go wherever you want, or you can book a ticket on an existing trip. It's kind of like a 90-foot long, 90-ton rolling bed and breakfast at the end of an Amtrak train.
Wow. That is so
Yeah.
cool. That is so cool. Okay, so what's the number one thing everybody orders when they're on the train? Is there like a most popular drink that everybody picks or?
I mean, it depends on the person. I think for me, it's like, what do they want rather than what do I think they should get? Most things are pretty simple: wine, rum and coke, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I will say, though, if I make a drink involving a shaker, suddenly everyone wants whatever that is.
That's right. Everybody likes to right?
Exactly. Yeah. And of course, some of the is happening as the train is going along. You have to make sure that you don't trip and drop things on people as you're going.
Yeah, that's right. Well, it's a whole percussion thing going on. I can hear the train going, and I can hear you shaking the shaker. That's so fun. All right. Well,
Exactly.
enough about bartending and drinking cocktails. Do that at the end of this podcast, folks. All right. So, we're going to talk about your book, which is Calm the Chaos. It's brand new. You're such a
Yeah.
prolific writer, and I've got it here in my hot little hands. I love this book
Yeah,
so
it's
much.
one of the early preview proof copies. Now available online at calmthechaos.xyz through Amazon worldwide, but you have one of the very first copies.
I know, and I have mine autographed by the Karl Sakas. Yes. So
Yeah,
I am all
yeah,
excited about that. All right. Well, first of all, not many people read the foreword in a book, but I did.
yeah,
And I love this little foreword, and it's by a gal named Jenny Dietrich. And I love her
yeah,
little story, and it sets the tone for the book beautifully. Will you talk a little bit about what she's written in here? I love it.
yeah. So Ginny Dietrich's background is as an agency owner and advisor. She runs a number of things. She's created the peso model for communications and improving your marketing mix. She also runs a website and community called Spin Sucks about helping the PR industry do better work. And, when I asked her to do the forward, she shared about her early experience leading her firm. And she had worked with a coach and had to, and an important reality check at one point,
Yeah.
noting that she was complaining about, things with her team. Her team couldn't do their job. And, everyone was burned out and she was frustrated and no one was happy. And she shared it with the coach. He let her vent. And then he said, And whose fault do you think this is?
Oh, I love that. I love this coach.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, what have you seen about things like that?
Yeah. Well, I love it in here. She said 3 things. She said, I was talking to him. My year in business was so bad. I'm often surprised I kept going. And 3 things happened. Clients were constantly upset at the lack of service. My team complained, and I had a mean business coach. That's what caught me. And I kept reading. And I thought, oh, I'm the mean business coach sometimes. So I absolutely adore that. And then she says,
Yeah.
I had a mean business coach who held no punches, and then in parentheses, he wasn't really mean. He did a great job. I was just highly sensitive and prone to tears. I thought that was lovely.
It can happen. I've started asking my clients during the intake process. There's a 60 question intake questionnaire once they become a client. There are other things that I ask as well. And one of the questions I ask is basically, how spicy do they want my advice to be? Are we talking about really hot, spicy, medium, or mild? So far, since I've added that question, no one has chosen mild.
Oh,
Usually it's
fantastic.
medium or extra spicy. But of course, the proof is in the pudding.
Yeah, I might have to steal that shamelessly from you, Carl. Add it to my intake
Great.
form because
Yeah,
I mean
yeah.
it's like that movie. What's that movie? You can't handle the truth. What was that movie?
I think you said oh, no, A Few Good Men?
Yes,
I think
yes.
they're
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah, and here's the thing, that's what you hire a coach for is to help you get your push-ups done and get your sit-ups done and get your laps done around the track or whatever, that's a metaphor, but we definitely want that. And so I think that
and to clarify for everyone who's listening, coaching isn't all exhausting and not fun stuff. I
oh,
mean,
exactly.
sometimes that comes up, but, really it's for me, it's helping clients focus on what will give them the highest impact. Sometimes that's prioritizing longer term things that they might ignore otherwise. Other
Yes.
times it's working on quick wins that'll give them a big impact immediately, and that feels great, build up momentum. It's not all bad. It's not going to boot camp.
Yeah. No, but I agree with you. It's like, you've got to hold the balance between here's what I want to happen in my future. What do I got to do today to make that future happen? Right. So that's so good.
Exactly.
All right. So in the book, it's called Calm the Chaos 10 Ways to Run a Better Agency, or in Nicole Greer's mind, business, hospital, retail space, whatever your stuff
Yeah.
is. And so you give people a reassuring note on page 7. You say, you don't have to start from scratch. Life is easier when you focused on what's more important. And so
Yes.
you've got these 10 ways. And so the first way to run a better business or agency is to take good care of yourself. I love that. Will you talk a little bit about how leaders need to take care of themselves?
Yeah. I mean, people, if you're listening, you've probably heard some version of put on your own oxygen mask first before assisting others. And it's true. I think we all know it, but that can be hard to implement in the day to day. And in the book, I share some examples. And even as a coach, I can struggle with this too. A while back, I logged into what I thought was just going to be a normal Zoom meeting with my team. It was a Friday morning, it was going to be a relatively light meeting day. Little did I know I was logging into an intervention. My team was concerned about
Oh,
my workload, concerned how things were going, and they offered help to sort out how to make things better. And at that point, I had a decision to make. Do I listen to them? They're sharing concerns. They're trying to support me. Do I listen or do I ignore them and continue business as usual? And I decided I needed to make a change, and I did, and with their help, and that made things a lot better. And fast forward to today, on the other hand, there are some bosses who will hear that kind of feedback from their team and they'll dismiss it.
mm,
And that's bad for the boss and it's bad for the team.
100%.
They're going to stop bringing up concerns in the future.
Yeah. And you talk about in here about the first thing you need to do is look at your calendar.
Yes. Yes.
Are you
Well,
delusional? Are you in back to back to back to back to back meetings? Answer is yes, you are.
yeah. And as a manager and as a leader, you're going to be in meetings. That is part of your job. I occasionally have clients say, I'm in all these meetings. I can't do my work. And I'm like, well, if you're in a leadership role, meetings are part of your work. That's part of how you accomplish things.
Right.
But I recommend doing what I would call a calendar review, where you look through your calendar, typically a week at a time, and then each day to see where are you spending your time. Are you in meetings that maybe now you could skip going to entirely? Are there
Mm,
meetings maybe where you still need to attend, but maybe you no longer need to be the one who's leading the meeting. Maybe you can delegate that to a team member. So now you can show up as an attendee. And maybe you're going to make some decisions, but you're not having to organize all of it. And in the middle, there could be meetings where maybe you attend once a month instead of every week or something like that. These are opportunities for you to help your team grow and for you to focus on other things. As I talk about in my last book, Work Less, Earn More, if the head of the company or someone who's in an executive or leadership role is working less and also earning more, it means someone else in the team is going to get elevated to do some of that work. And that's an opportunity for them to get promotions, to move up in their career, and make your life easier.
Yeah, 100%. You got to figure out who's going to take over for me. Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
And you've got lots of tips in this chapter. Another one is
Well,
consider energy management. So I just wanted to tap on that
yes.
for a second because I think
Yeah.
energy management's huge. In my work, I teach that there's actually 6 energies inside a human. There's
Mm,
intellectual, emotional, spiritual, physical, social, and financial. All of those energies need to be addressed, but I love what you've got in the book. So talk a little bit about I got to manage my day, not so many meetings, and then how about
yeah.
my energy? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, for people who are listening, think about when you're at your best and when you're at your worst.
Mhm.
If you're a morning person, don't try to get your hardest work done before you wrap up for the day. And likewise, I have a client who's basically like, I don't want to do meetings before 11 a.m. So in that case, doing a meeting at 8 a.m. for that particular client would not go
Draining.
smoothly. Yeah, yeah. And I mean, it's harder when your team is across many time zones. Say if you have a team in the US and you're in Europe, you're working late days. If you have colleagues in India or in China, you're going to be up early or up late to meet with them. And you know what? They're doing the same to meet with you.
That's
So
right.
try to find the right balance for you and for your team. And keep in mind that as a leader, your goal is to get results through your team. Sometimes that means going outside your comfort zone to help your team get what they need so they can get what you need. But, it starts by talking about it, right? Should you have the weekly team meeting at 8 a.m. on Monday morning? For some teams, yes. For others, maybe it's better to have it Tuesday morning where people have had a chance to catch up from things on Monday, or maybe have it on Friday morning where you've been through most of the week. There's still some time to wrap up, and then people can hit the ground running on Monday. You need to find what's right for you and your culture.
Yeah, absolutely. So, number one in Carl's book, and we're talking about calm the chaos, everybody. And his first
Yeah.
tip is take care of yourself. And I'll just say that the last tip, I mean, he's got many, many, many tips in chapter one, but the other one I think is great is it's okay to do nothing. Schedule
Yes.
yourself some
Yeah.
nothing time.
Yeah. Part of capitalism is saying you must be productive at all times.
Yes.
It's okay to rest. And if you're in a leadership role, you actually have a unique opportunity in that you've got, in theory, if you pursue it, more flexibility in your time and how you spend that time and things like that compared to frontline employees. I mean, ideally, you're creating flexibility for them as well, but no one's going to tell you to stop, to
Isn't
rest.
that true?
If you have a coach, your coach is going to recommend that at times, but we all need to recharge.
Yeah, 100%. All right, let's go on to the second chapter, which is the second way to run a better agency, company, hospital, retail space, etc.,
Yeah.
except that you're no longer the sole quote unquote doer or quote unquote answer person in your agency or organization. This is huge. Like, let somebody else do the stuff. Talk a little bit about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. I first encountered that, was speaking at the Soda Academy, the Society of Digital Agencies. I was leading a workshop on leadership, and one of the attendees who'd been running his agency for a while said, if you want to grow, you can't continue being the answer person
That's right.
all the time. And I would add, or as the doer, it's scary to let other people do things other than you for the first time. I share an example about my German teacher in high school. One of her catchphrases was, if you want it done right, do it yourself. She also was the homeowners association president for her community. So I think she had experience doing thankless work, but you know,
That's
as
funny.
leader, I, yeah,
Those of you who
so
have been on the homeowners association know what he's talking about.
I've intentionally avoided it and will seek to do that for as long as
I
possible.
my husband did it for 3 years. Don't do it. Okay, anyways, go ahead.
Uh-oh,
Somebody's
uh-oh.
got to do it.
Growing up, my parents were both career Army officers and now retired. In the military, there's a joke about a group of early career officers that are struggling to put up a flagpole. And the instructor is looking for the right answer. The right answer is for the young lieutenants to just give the order, Sergeant, put up this flagpole. Let me know if you need any additional resources. I'll be back later. Right. Like, don't jump in and do the work that you've asked your team to do or that your team is there to do. It undermines their morale, it reduces their
Mm,
confidence, and it makes your life harder. Now, that's not to say that you should expect your team to guess about where the flagpoles need to go and that they can do it without your providing access to the resources. But your job is to be thinking about where the flagpoles should go, not necessarily to put them all up. There is still some leading by example. I had a client in Australia who mentioned that he made a point of emptying the dishwasher in the morning, some of the time, so that the team could see that, okay, if the boss is doing it, they can do it too.
right.
Ideally, you aren't doing all of that all of the time, but it's hard to start delegating things. One of the things I mentioned in Calm the Chaos is, there's often this idea of, well, just delegate more. And that sounds good. That makes for a good bumper sticker or wall sign or what have you. The thing is, delegation is actually complicated. There are 15 to 20 steps, depending on if you need to hire someone for the first time. You don't have to necessarily think about every step every time if you have a good team and you've got existing structure. But there's everything from should I even delegate this to what are the parts to delegate to thinking ahead, how will I integrate this person's work into my workflow later? And if you need to hire someone, that makes it even harder. So delegation is complicated, but it is definitely a learn by doing kind of thing. What do you see with your clients?
Yeah, really what I'm thinking about this whole concept of you can't be the only person is most agency owners, I imagine, they started it, they're entrepreneurial, and they're scared.
Mm.
They're scared to give
Yeah,
up control because maybe people won't do it exactly how I do it. And, I think
right.
sometimes it's just a little bit of maybe your ego pops up. That's what makes you scared. And it's
Yeah,
like, well, you know what? One of your people might actually do it better than you. I mean, that's been my personal experience in my own company.
yeah.
Like, if you would get out of the way, we'd really make this rock and roll. I was like, "Oh, okay."
I yes, I held off for a long time on delegating sending invoices. I enlisted my colleague Kate to do it. She does it faster, it's better. I should have done it years earlier, but
Right.
I think we all need to see for ourselves. Keeping in mind, of course, that if you don't have team members who could do it, I think of a Venn diagram.
Okay.
Imagine three circles intersecting: desire, competence, and capacity.
Yes.
If your team doesn't have desire, they want to do it, competence, they know how to do it, and capacity, they have time. If you don't have all three of those, then it is hard to delegate. I can understand not delegating in that situation. But if your team has all of that desire, competence, and capacity, now the blockage is probably you as the leader.
That's right, and that's on page 28 and 29 in the book, and he's got again, so many things in here, and I love anything with a diagram or a system or a little something or other
Yes.
that I can memorize
Yep.
that helps me realize things. You've got another thing,
It,
clarify
exactly.
responsibilities via an ARCI matrix.
Exactly. And RC, or some people will hear of it as a RACI, RACI.
Okay.
It's an acronym, and the goal here is to clarify who's in charge of what and also who is not in charge of what. The acronym stands for accountable, responsible, consulted, and informed. Accountable is the person usually at the very top of the company or top of the project. Ultimately, they're on the hook whether something happens or not. However, the person who is responsible is usually the one who is doing it. In a very small organization, accountable and responsible are going to be identical, but accountable, you could think of it as the executive sponsor
Right.
for a particular project. that's accountable. Responsible is more about the person who's leading it, doing it day to day. Consulted are people who need to provide input before things are done. And informed people need to know what's happened, but not necessarily in advance. One of the biggest challenges that can waste your time as a leader is if someone is on the informed list, but they think they should be consulted,
Mm.
or if they jump in and think they're responsible, right? They're frustrated, you're frustrated, everyone else is frustrated. By clarifying the ARCI, or RACI matrix at the beginning of a project or when someone's starting a new role, there's going to be less drama because people aren't butting heads over who's in charge of what. Should they have been consulted? Should they have been updated? That kind of thing. They can also reduce the risk of what I would describe as a swoop and poop. That's
The
where
swoop and poop. Oh my
yes,
gosh, I love this. Keep talking.
yes,
I just love it.
that's where imagine a seagull, right? They fly in, leave some unwanted deposits, and fly away. Now you have to clean up the mess. Same thing happens in business and elsewhere. Say there's an executive who wasn't involved in the planning process, but suddenly they realize they wanted to be involved later. They show up, leave some negative feedback without any context to everything you've gone through so far, and then they leave and you have to clean up the mess.
Hmm.
That's part of my client intake process where I'm asking about key stakeholders. I'm generally working with agency owners or executives on the leadership team. Usually, with my work with independent agencies, this isn't an issue. But imagine you start working with an organization, maybe it's a client organization for whatever your company is doing. And they're like, oh, the CEO doesn't need to be involved in this. Or the CFO, no, I'll keep them updated. Don't worry about it. They might show up later and derail the whole engagement. So make sure the right people are in the loop. Make sure that people who aren't decision makers don't think they're decision makers and then feel frustrated when you're not listening to them. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And so really what you're talking about is like a little model that helps you get expectations in place, right?
Exactly, and I didn't invent RC or RACI, it's been around for years. I think more people would benefit from it. So if
Agreed.
someone's hearing about it now, or if they're reading the book, or they're hearing about it for the first time, check it out. I share examples in the Calm the Chaos book,
Yes.
including an agency example of how to do it, but you can apply it in any industry, any setting.
Right. And we can get this book at calmthechaos.xyz. Did I get that right?
That is exactly right.
Okay.
That'll link out to all of the Amazon sites worldwide. If you like it in print, you can get it in hardcover or paperback. You can also, if you prefer it digitally, you can get the Kindle version. Or, and as I listen to more and more books, there's also an audiobook version that I narrate myself. It's under 2.5 hours. So you can listen to it quickly and then refer back to it. I have kept the book intentionally short. It's just over 100
Yeah.
pages in
People
print.
got a lot to read and take care of, don't they?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So let's make it a little easier. It's a quick read, about 100 pages, or if you listen, a bit under 2.5 hours.
Fantastic. All right. Well, let's go to the third thing. And this is the third
Yeah.
way to run a better agency, company, organization, department. Is
Yeah.
this one I love because, I'm all
Hmm.
about building a vibrant culture. And so it
Yeah.
says in chapter 3, create the work environment you wish you had. Because
Yes.
don't you remember being the new person at the agency or the new person at the company and you thought, oh, I didn't sign up for this, or I wish this was different?
Exactly. I had a boss years ago who took me aside. It was my first job. I was sharing a lot of suggestions to improve the company. And he said, Carl, just because you're helping row the boat doesn't mean you get to steer. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it was disheartening to
You're
hear,
like, I'm
but
not
he was
trying to
right.
steer.
There
I'm
was
just suggesting we need new
I
paddles.
know, I know, but that was good advice for the culture.
Yeah.
It didn't go smoothly for him. He gave notice on a Friday morning,
Uh-oh.
gave a 2 weeks notice, and the president of the company said, "Well, actually, that's good because your replacement is starting on Monday.
Ah,
We're gonna fire him that afternoon." Yeah. Thankfully, he is, but years later has moved on to better things.
good, good, good. All right. Well,
Yeah.
I love all of your suggestions in here. And the first one I think is just the greatest about warmth and competence. So, will you
Yes.
just talk about what you mean by warmth and competence?
Yeah, so it's a concept from the book The Human Brand by Chris Malone and Susan Fisk. And what they talk about is that humans tend toward either warmth, making people feel special, or competence, focusing on results, getting the job done. And ideally, we are high warmth and high competence. And you can use this model for thinking about how you interact with other people, how you interact with companies. If you were running a company, thinking about the employee experience and the customer or client experience, it gives a simple yet powerful framework. For instance, I had some recent discussion with my team as we've migrated to a new marketing automation system. There was something that I wanted to do that turned out to be very complicated to implement, just based on the various nuances involved. And we were thinking about, is it worth it? And, I was able to raise what is the high warmth, high competence solution. And in that case, it meant doing the extra work to build out, making it happen, something that seemed very simple to the recipient, but it turned out was fairly complex to build. And people say if you tend toward warmth, you can look for opportunities to build on the competence side. If you lean more toward competence, you're looking for opportunities to boost warmth as well.
Yeah, yeah. And I think people want to be in an environment where they're appreciated, but they're also challenged to do the
Yeah.
things that they've never done before, you know? So those two things
Yeah.
can exist together. I don't know if you've read the book or heard of Kim Scott, who wrote Radical Candor.
Very popular with many of my clients. I've read the summary of it. I haven't read the whole thing yet.
Yeah, and her model is a little bit similar. It's like care about people personally, but challenge them directly is what radical candor is. And I think that that
Yeah.
just mirrors that so lovely. All right. So another thing in chapter 3, which I think is so good, create the work environment wish you had, the vibrant culture.
Yeah.
You talk about trust but verify, and you said during the Cold
Mhm.
War, U.S. leaders adopted a Russian saying, "Trust but verify." But I remember Ronnie Reagan saying that. That was the first president I ever voted
Yes,
for.
he in particular, though apparently for the Soviet Union, they were amused that it was a Russian saying that he was applying
Yeah.
to around holding them accountable. But, the leadership version of that, whether you're at an agency or any other kind of organization, is don't just assume everyone's doing what they need to do. Sometimes they don't know what they need to
That's
do.
right.
Other times, maybe they know they need to do it, but they don't know how to do it or what a high quality result or deliverable is going to look like. And the good news is some of that is going to be live, synchronous in a meeting or in a conversation. Other times, though, it can be asynchronous. For instance, you can go into your project management system and see, are people logging notes about what's going on? If a salesperson isn't hitting their quota, are they logging activities to your CRM? Just because someone is doing sales activities, that doesn't guarantee they're going to get results. But if someone isn't getting results, and you see that they aren't doing any of the activities, outreach, calls, emails, sending proposals, they're definitely not going to get results.
That's
So
right.
you can do that background research before you have the synchronous call. And if you realize there are things you need, say there's a weekly meeting and you need certain updates in advance, part of your baseline expectation is to say, I need this, this, and this by an hour before the meeting or by end of day before the meeting so I can review it, so you can prepare.
Yeah, that's great.
Are you ready to build your vibrant culture? Bring Nicole Greer to speak to your leadership team, conference, or organization to help them with their strategies, systems, and smarts to increase clarity, accountability, energy, and results. Your organization will get lit from within. Email her at nicole@vibrantculture.com and be sure to check out Nicole's TEDx talk at vibrantculture.com.
All right. I think the last thing I want to cover on this point, we can't go past it, is a tolerance
Thank
for mistakes. I mean,
Yeah.
we have such pressure to get things perfect. And one of the things that I teach when I teach the vibrant culture program that I do is that I talk
Yeah.
about all the people that come to work for you have been in the typically American school system where we're all like so programmed to get an A, you know?
Yeah.
And if you're
Yeah.
doing a good job of hiring people, you're probably hiring people that like got A's. And so there's this huge thing where we have to be perfect, but you're saying we need to tolerate mistakes, which that's how you learn.
Yeah. It's a balancing act.
Yes.
But if your culture is such that mistakes are unacceptable versus, say, being learning opportunities, people are going to be afraid to make mistakes, but then
Yes.
they may be more prone to make mistakes, and then they're scared to disclose that they've made mistakes.
And then,
One of the things that'll happen in the US Navy on aircraft carriers, you can't have foreign objects or debris on the flight deck, right? Can get sucked into the jet engine and create all kinds of problems.
yeah.
And it's the idea that if someone realizes they've dropped a wrench or something like that, the idea is they're going to disclose it, and then everyone spreads out to find it, like they stop flight operations. But part of it is that they'll actually positively recognize people who disclose it
Mm.
rather than hide it, because that ultimately is a matter of life or death.
I love that example too. All right, so that's
Yeah.
number 3 out of his 10 ways to
Yeah.
run a better agency,
Yeah.
company, organization, retail store. All right, so let's
Mhm.
go to chapter 4, which is right up my alley. Train and coach
Yeah.
your team early. They have to do their job later. Support your team proactively. Yeah, so I agree. I think people wait till there's a problem and it's like he needs coaching.
Yeah. 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 Coaching becomes sort of a penalty or a
Oh, it
punishment.
kills me,
Uh,
Carl.
I
Oh,
yeah, but I mean, think for instance, did Michael Jordan see coaching as a punishment?
no.
No, it was part of making him an amazing player.
Yeah, so I think that's so important. And I love what you say on page 46. Make a list of training and documentation topics. I mean,
Yeah,
what keeps coming around in these meetings, all those meetings we talked about back in chapter 1, you know?
it exactly. And something in the final book, there are actually three things you can do to prioritize around documentation, and
Woo,
it's kind of like risk management. You start by looking at what is most likely to happen. If it's likely to happen, you should probably document it or have a plan for risk management. What might not be as likely, but would be catastrophic if it did, you probably want to plan for that. That's where things like disaster preparedness and business continuity plans
mm,
come in, where you're hoping it doesn't happen. It'd be bad if it did. Be ready for that. And the third area is around what if things go really well, right? You've planned things go amazingly well. Are you ready for that?
yeah.
Sort out what the plan is.
Right, because we gotta scale now, right? Because the
Yes.
business is coming in. Okay, I love that. All right, so get a training plan in place, and I
Yep.
love the idea of the training plan and risk management going together like peanut butter and jelly. All right.
Yep.
Okay, number 5 seems so obvious, but I think that sometimes leaders are wishing, hoping, and praying. Now, I'm a big believer in prayer, but wishing and hoping might not be the greatest strategy. So in chapter 5, Carl tells us, tell your team what you need from them. This is fantastic advice.
You your team can't read your mind.
Right.
I think your note about common sense, I think as they say, common sense isn't always common practice.
Right, right.
I think you need that reminder that, the team can't read your mind. That includes giving them a clear vision to follow, setting clear expectations, thinking about frameworks. I have one that I call values, goals, and resources. If you're
Yes.
assigning something, if they know the values to consider, how you want to operate, the goals, what are they trying to achieve, and the resources involved, what are the time, budget, people, software, things like that to help them get things done, they're going to interrupt you less often if they know the values, goals, and resources. And if they don't, you're expecting them to read your mind, and that rarely goes smoothly.
Right. People don't have ESP. That's only like a Vegas thing, I think. All right. And so that's chapter 5 on page 59, what he just rattled off. And then there's 3 A's of communication. I want to go over those real quick. The three
Yeah.
A's. I think this is also very
Yes.
good.
So consider this as a manager or leader, a team member comes to you and they've got some sort of a problem. And you're like, "Oh, why aren't they bringing me a solution?" Like, so now I gotta deal with this, right? And you're
Right.
solving the problem and you're telling them what to do and all. They seem to be getting a little fidgety, and then they go off and they're supposed to implement what you said. Here's the thing, maybe they weren't expecting you to solve their problem.
Mm,
And a lot of the things as leaders we take on, we don't need to take on. There's plenty that you do, but here's the idea here, what I call the 3 A's of communications. The 3 A's are aware, advise, and actively involved. The idea is that when someone comes to you, you ask them, or ideally over time they volunteer it, are they sharing this to make you aware? Like they've got it, they just want you to be aware of what's going on. Are they sharing because they need advice about what to do? Like They can solve it, but they need to get your advice about potential options, or they're thinking of this or that. What do you recommend? And the third area is for you to become actively involved. That's where they need you to step in and they need you to actively help rather than jumping in where maybe they just wanted you to be aware and instead you're insisting on actively involved. You just wasted your time. You hurt their morale and they're not going to learn as well about how to do it themselves in the future.
Yeah, I love it. The 3 A's. All right, that's chapter 5. Chapter
Yeah.
6 is delegate intentionally, not recklessly. So
Yeah.
practice delegation, not abdication. Woo! That's so good. All right, talk a little bit about what you've got in here. You've actually got 15 steps. It's on page 67, everybody. So we probably don't have time
Yes.
to get through all 15 steps,
We'll get
but
through all of them.
yeah, if you thought to yourself, what are the steps of delegation? Carl's got it in his book. Calm the chaos. So learn to
Yeah,
delegate.
the full breakdown. I think if we were to tie all of that together, as a leader, you want to avoid creating leadership vacuums.
Mm,
Those are situations where everyone is waiting to hear what you want them to do or what you expect from them, and you're just not telling them. And usually leadership vacuums are inadvertent. You didn't mean to create the leadership vacuum, but as a leader, you're responsible if it happens.
right.
This can be especially challenging if people are going through personal crises. For instance, if a leader is getting divorced, right? They're not going to be fully present at work. Things still need to get done though. And if the leader hasn't enlisted others, hasn't delegated things to others, stuff either isn't happening, and that's not good, or people are jumping in and trying to help, but they may not be following the values, goals, and resources because the leader hasn't shared those with them. So leadership vacuums are really insidious. One shortcut, and this could apply to a lot of situations, decide what type of delegation you want to do. And I think of it as two options. There's inclusive delegation and exclusive delegation. Inclusive is if you say, here's a list of things that you can do. If it's on the list, do it. If it's not on the list, don't do it. And that can be especially helpful if someone is new to your team, right? And you're getting to know them and they're getting to know you. Inclusive is if it's on this list, you can do it. Exclusive delegation is you give them a list of what not to do. And as long as it's not on the list, they can do it.
Mm,
There's a government example. I've done some government 101 programs here in North Carolina. In North Carolina, local government cannot do anything unless the state has approved or authorized it to do it. In contrast, in Colorado, it's the opposite. Unless the state government has forbidden it or federal forbidden it, the city or the town can do whatever they want.
mm.
So very different models,
The
inclusive or
Wild
exclusive.
West, we like to call it.
Yes, yes. I would say if you've got a team member that you know and trust and they have good judgment, I would lean toward more of an exclusive delegation approach.
Yeah.
They can't sell the company, they can't sign a contract over a certain dollar amount, but other than that, ideally they're empowered to do what they can
Let's
because
make
then
it
they would.
happen.
Yeah, yeah.
So good. I love it. Okay, chapter 7. Give team
Yes.
members a chance, but not forever. Okay, and then your
Yeah.
little tagline here is your agency isn't a charity. Your company is not a charity. You don't have to keep folks who aren't contributing. Oh my God, I love this. Talk, talk, talk.
Yeah. Yeah, I think sometimes there's this idea of give people a chance. Yes, you should give people a chance, but
Yes,
not forever. That includes as a leader coaching your team on coaching their team. That also means taking action. Maybe someone is good at their job, but they are a poor culture fit, or worse. Don't tolerate bad actors in your business.
that's right.
Maybe they're great at sales, but they're toxic in other ways. What message are you sending to the rest of your team? If you encourage them, you keep them, you promote them.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
Carl, I will ask, like, I'll have a whole room full of leaders and we're about to talk about
yeah,
leadership. We're doing a retreat or something. And I will ask them this question. I will say, I have an individual, they're on your team.
yeah,
They're excellent at the tasks, the things on their job description, but
yes.
they are not user friendly. Are they a good employee? And I say, you only get to pick yes or no. And I'm so shocked how
Mm.
oftentimes people say yes. And I'm like, no, no, no. You got to have
That's
both. Because
Yeah,
the person who
yeah.
is good at their job but toxic, as you're saying, is
Yep.
going to upset everybody. And then you're not going to have what I call a vibrant culture.
And we all want that.
Yeah.
I sometimes shorthand people like that where maybe they're good at the work, but no one likes working with them as a misanthropic loner. Right.
I love
I've
it.
had a number of clients with people who fit that description. I've worked with some over the years, and they would probably succeed as an individual freelancer or some sort of a role where they're not part of a team. But in my work with agencies, they are all team based environments. I mean, most companies are, right? You need
Yes.
people to work together. If you've got a misanthropic loner, set some boundaries, set some standards. If they aren't willing to change, they're going to need to find a new job.
That's exactly right. And it's just that simple. And what I say, everybody who's listening that has worked with me, my thing is coach them in or coach them out. And what's our heart? Our
Yes.
heart is to coach them in. I mean, maybe they'll
Yeah. Yeah.
change, but if they won't, they gotta go. They gotta go bye-bye. All right. So I
Yeah.
love that. Okay, chapter 8, build a team of
Yeah.
strong leaders to support you. So like you don't have to go it alone, right?
No, no. And certainly, if people really dislike managing and leading people, then there are other alternatives to consider. My work is a lot with business owners. You could work as an employee for someone else in a subject matter expert role. You could work as what I would call the super consultant role, where you're doing high end advice, but you're not managing a full team kind of thing. But for everyone else, we benefit from having a team to support us. And that includes identifying people who have potential, creating a leadership pipeline to help them move up, helping people identify career paths, whether you're doing that with your direct reports and then making sure they do it with their direct reports,
Yes.
looking for opportunities to promote from within when you can and to hire externally when that's the best option, recognizing that external hires are going to need more support in acclimating to their role because it's not just the role, but it's to your business as well. Having more check ins with people, also check their references, make
Yes,
sure
that
that
is
you're
not
getting
a
in
dead
care.
concept, is it? I mean,
No, yeah,
we
yeah.
we can
So
we can
it,
check them out.
and within that, and this is true for anyone in any role, I think of it as there are three things that they need: training, coaching, and escalated responsibility.
Hmm.
Right, training is kind of a baseline of how things work, what you expect, things like that. Coaching is that one-on-one custom support, whether it's accountability, maybe a Socratic method. What do you think you should do? Or my approach to coaching is technically coaching style consulting, where I'm still making recommendations based on their situation rather than what do you think endlessly.
Hmm.
And then escalated responsibility is letting them take on some responsibility, see how they do, help them improve, then take on more, then take on more. I often help my clients create and implement succession plans where the owner wants to step back to become, say, the chair of the business and more of an investor role, or sometimes they want to sell entirely. And that usually requires a multi year succession plan. For instance, I had a team member who started as an account manager, was doing sales and account management, then director of client services, vice president, president, and just became CEO of the
How
agency.
wonderful.
That was yeah, but that was like a 5-year process. It
Sure.
wasn't an overnight kind of thing. You wanna make sure that people are competent, talk about desire, competence, capacity. You also want to make sure that you can trust their character because you're putting people into high responsibility roles. You wanna make sure you're choosing the right people, and some of that just takes time.
100%. 100%. Yeah. And I
Yeah.
just love what you just said. One of the key tools a lot of my listeners have heard me talk about is I use a thing called the tilt. And it is an assessment that goes beyond personality, which everybody needs to understand personality. But the way that you manage your personality is typically the quality of your character and putting
Mhm.
character traits around you. So I couldn't agree more. I think that's important. And I do want to highlight on page 87 of Carl's book,
Y
Calm the Chaos,
yeah.
he's got this idea of an extended team. And I
Yes.
think this is a wonderful little list. He says, make sure you know a good therapist, a coach, a lawyer, an HR consultant, an accountant, an insurance agent, a financial planner, a personal trainer, a spiritual advisor. I mean, it's just so many things that people need to have. I just had a call the other day that said, I've got this guy, I want you to coach him. I'm like, he doesn't need coaching, he needs a counselor. you know,
Yes.
and you got to
Yeah.
have one in your back pocket so that this person can get the help they need. So I think that that is a wonderful list that you've got in the book.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Fantastic. All right, number 9. We got 2 to go. Number 9 is
Yeah.
hire a great number 2 and a reliable assistant. So, one of the things that I've been doing is talking to people about another book called Traction. I bet you
Mhm.
you've heard of Traction, but in there it talks about how, you have a visionary and then you have somebody who's called an integrator. And I think that language is really cool. But I love what you say. Want it or not, we all need help. Getting help makes you a better leader. So get yourself some help. Talk about how people can do that.
Yeah, whether you're using the EOS model of visionary and integrator, and I have a lot of clients who use EOS.
Yes.
I also think there would be starter versus finisher. I had a new client who was like, I had all these goals last year and I barely accomplished any of them. I dug in and there were two partners. They had 12 really big goals.
Yeah.
I was like, what if you each chose one big goal for the coming year? And he's like, well, I want to do 12. And I'm like, well, you identified 12 and didn't do them. What if you picked 2 and maybe a third for their head of operations and you accomplished all 3 of them? What would that be like? And be like, "Oh, that would be great." But it might be hard to choose which ones. And I'm like, "I can help
That's
you
right.
choose." So having a number 2, if you're the starter, you're initiating things, you're selling, you're recruiting, you're getting people excited. We all benefit from having a finisher to help us finish the details.
Mhm.
And sometimes we may do a bit of both, right? My clients are the starters in their business. They'll often have a finisher on their team, and I'm helping as their coach around sorting that out. On the other hand, I'm the starter within my own business. So you need to find what's right for you. And that includes finding this great number 2 who can support you in getting things done. You have the idea, they make it happen. Sometimes they point out the problems with it so you can sort that out rather than just charge ahead.
Right.
And then also having an assistant to help on the administrative details. Both roles help save you from yourself.
That's right. And having an executive assistant is so easy these days. You can
Yep.
have one hour a week that you pay as a contractor, and you can hire somebody full time, give them benefits and all that stuff. There's just
Yes.
so many things that you can do. I talk to salespeople sometimes, Carl, and
Mhm.
they're like, my company doesn't give me any support. I'm like, buy yourself some support out of your own pocket. And they're like, how do I do
Yeah.
that? It's like, let me give you a couple phone numbers and websites to visit, and find
Yeah.
yourself
Yeah.
somebody who will do your proposals, put your stuff in the CRM, Salesforce, so you don't have to. And I mean, these salespeople can go do what they love to do, which is go talk to people and show the
Yeah.
product and do whatever. So there's so many cool things you can do. Plus, you can buy Carl's book. All right.
Uh,
All right, let's bring it
Thank
home.
you.
Number 10, create
Yeah.
better meetings. Oh, let's hear all about this because everybody is like, oh, she saved the best for last. Carl saved the best for last. They're in terrible meetings, Carl. Everybody complains about the meetings. Help us to have a better meeting, Carl.
Yeah, yeah. I have the ribbon that people may have seen. I survived another meeting that should have been an email.
Oh my
They
gosh, where'd
also
you get
there's
that?
it's available online. You can go to buy Olympia, BUY Olympia.com. That's the person behind it.
That
And they
is
also have
fantastic.
a red ribbon, which is I survived an email that should have been a meeting. There's a little bit of something for everyone. I mean, the thing is, we've known for a long time that meetings are a problem. I have a copy of a book from the early 1970s on running better business meetings, published by 3M, which made like overhead projector
Oh my
transparencies and things like
goodness.
that, right? All of these meeting related products. And in the opening of the book, they ask, should you even have a meeting? Like, we've known for over 50 years that we're a little over meetinged and things like that, but what do you do about it?
Right.
If you are a manager, if you are a leader, you can fix things, you can make things better for your team at least.
Yes.
You still may be at the mercy of meetings that you're pulled into, but I would say meetings aren't the enemy. Bad meetings are the enemy.
Yes, yes.
So that includes things like I mentioned doing the calendar review earlier in our conversation. You can also do a meeting audit specifically. Like a lot of the things on your calendar likely are meeting related. You can also look at which requires a live meeting versus asynchronous. You can do an approach that information designer Edward Tufte introduced me to through one of his trainings, what he calls study hall. So if you've
Hmm.
got a meeting where people need to review things and they're not reviewing it in advance, have a packet that people can read at the beginning of the meeting, during the meeting, in the first 10 or 15 minutes, and get up to speed on what's going on. And then only discuss out loud what needs to be discussed. Problem solving, brainstorming, maybe highlighting certain key things. But the idea is don't use the live synchronous meeting on things that could have been an email.
Yeah. And, I notice when I go in and work with teams, and, I've
Mhm.
actually gone to the leadership team's meeting to see like what the dynamics are. And it's like this week in marketing, we're marketing. And this week in
Mhm.
sales, we've been selling. And it goes around the table like that. It's like,
Yeah,
can't we just send out the company scorecard or the KPIs? I mean, won't that take care of that? It should be
yeah.
that we have a dilemma, all hands on deck, all the brains in the room. Let's make this thing happen.
I did that while running the American Marketing Association AMA Triangle chapter, where
Right.
I used study hall. People made updates in advance, and we focused on working together to solve the biggest problems. That can be a challenge, right? If people just want others to hear their voice, kind of thing. But everyone likely is going to agree that you want the meetings to be effective and as short as necessary. I will say, although the goal generally is to reduce the meetings, not all of them, it's popular to make fun of the meeting before the meeting and the meeting after the meeting and things like that. However, if you are about to have an externally facing meeting that is particularly fraught, tense, difficult, high profile, high pressure, you should probably have an internal meeting to plan before that external meeting. And say it's a client meeting where you're presenting something that's going to include not just your day to day client, but their boss or the boss's boss, their board or something. You might want to do a pre meeting with your day to day contact to walk through what's going on. They might be like, ooh, don't mention that to so and so. They're not going to like that. Or, oh, definitely talk more about that because I know the CEO is really excited about that. Things like that. Do the meeting before the meeting if it's going to help make the meeting more successful. And then ideally debrief afterwards, whether synchronously or otherwise, on what worked, what didn't, what to do differently next time.
Yeah, fantastic, fantastic. All right. Do you all feel calmer out there? Do you feel like you have some strategies to move forward so you can calm the chaos? Well, here's the thing. Go get Carl's book, all right? And you can go to calmthechaos.xyz. And so, Carl, I'll let you take it away. How else? Like maybe people want you to come talk to their company, speak at their conference. Carl and I hang out at this thing called the National Speakers Association, and so that's how we know each other. And I've just been delighted to have you on the show. Thank you so much. Tell them how they can find you.
Yeah, well, if you go to calmthechaos.xyz, that can get you over to my main website, sakasandcompany.com, SAKASAND, the word company.com. I have over 400 articles about agency growth and management. And as you said, they apply to non-agencies as well.
Yes.
I also do a monthly live Q&A, agency office hours. And in addition to my one-on-one client coaching and consulting, I am available for speaking, whether that's at events or doing private workshops to make things better, whether that's a team retreat or something else. As I mentioned early in the book, running an agency or any business is never going to be easy, right? It's not like the Staples easy button. You press it easy and then that's done. It'll never be easy, but it doesn't have to be so hard. There are all kinds of best practices you can apply to your business to make things easier for you as a leader and importantly also make things easier for your team. It's a win-win-win.
Yes, absolutely. All right, everybody. That's been another episode of the Build a Vibrant Culture podcast. And here's what you need to do. Please, right now, go down to the bottom and click the like button. And then if you would leave a little love note for Carl, he's worked so hard to give you the 10 things you need to do to calm the chaos. So give the guy a little love. We appreciate you listening to the Build a Vibrant Culture podcast. Carl, I'll see you at the next NSA meeting.
Looking forward to it. Thanks, Nicole.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Build a Vibrant Culture podcast. If you found value in today's episode, please take a moment to leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback helps us improve and reach more like-minded listeners. Remember, the journey to building a vibrant culture never stops. Stay inspired, keep nurturing your vibrant culture, and we can't wait to reconnect with you on the next exciting episode of Build a Vibrant Culture podcast.